Well, as I have been talking ad nauseum, it has just been so hot, and we have had day after day of 100-degree weather. And while we have a little bit of a cool spell right now that I am definitely trying to take advantage of, those 100-degree temperatures are going to come back. So it's just been so hot and stuff has just done so poorly that I thought, well, if ever there was a year to experiment, why not now? I am expecting failure. And if I get any kind of success, I'll be happy about it. I'm also remedying an issue that I have identified and I want to take care of. So in this quadrant, and I'm working under my shade cloth, which, by the way, you guys, is not only giving shade to the garden, but it's giving shade to the gardener as well.
It's wonderful.
It is wonderful, isn't it, Stuart? Which gives me the momentum and the motivation to tackle this job. So in this quadrant right here, I've had a semi-permanent planting, I guess. I planted some dwarf berries, some dwarf strawberry, or dwarf raspberries. They were basil berries. I planted them a number of years ago, and I got good cut material from them. They flowered beautifully, and I like to use those in cut arrangements. And they would even set fruit, but the fruit just never really materialized. It never came to fruition, as it were, and so I decided that they weren't performing up to my expectations. I don't know what the problem was. I gave it enough berry food specifically for berries. I think maybe it wasn't getting the right kind of light, and so I decided out with them, out they go. I dug them up, I put them in a big bucket, and I'm going to gift them to my friend Kristen Davenport at Simple Acre Farm, where they will have more room to roam and romp. And now I'm just cleaning up this area. I discovered in here a tomato that had gone to seed, and it was kind of growing up into the raspberry canes, and I decided to leave it here and support it because it actually has some fruit on it. I need to do a little bit more trimming on it, but right now I'm just going to leave it in place. So my plans for the remainder of this area, I'm going to amend the soil. I'm going to clean it up of all of this debris that you see down here. I'm going to reposition some of the drip irrigation in here, and then I am going to see if I can defy late season cutworm, and I'm going to plant some red burgundy okra. Now this is 60 days until fruiting to production, and I just know how tough okra is, and maybe it can stand up to cutworms that I typically have late in the season. I might take some other measures to thwart them, but I'm going to try this. And that leads me to my question of the day. What late season seeding do you do in your garden? Sometimes people will plant a second harvest or a second seeding of zinnias or basil or sunflower or some such. And if you are planning on doing that, whether it's fruit or vegetable or flower, please let me know in the comments below. And so let's get started. What I'm going to do, as I said, amend the soil. I have two different amendments I'm going to use at about 50-50. One is this Manalfa. It is an organic composted blend of humus, compost, cotton burrs, and alfalfa. It is black gold. And this area hasn't really been amended vigorously because, as I said, the berries in here were in here pretty much for a number of years, and it was difficult for me to really rejuvenate the soil. I'm also going to put in, Stuart, if you'll show over there in the wheelbarrow, some of my favorite soil conditioner, Happy Grow Mix from Lowe's, which I am thrilled to say is back again. For a while they weren't carrying it. I was afraid that they were going to stop carrying it, but they are. So I'm going to kind of do a 50-50 blend of that. I'm going to work it in, and then I'm going to plant the red okra seed, water it in well, and just cross my fingers and see if this experiment works. Because why not? when temperatures are this extreme and you still want to do a little bit of gardening, I mean, why not? And I've got this, as I said, additional incentive because it's very pleasant under the shade cloth, isn't it, Stuart?
Very pleasant.
Okay, now let's get started. So let me share a tip with you, or actually maybe two tips. Number one, I just can't tell you how much I love my Kobo baskets. This is my little commercial. You can get them on QVC and we'll put a link, but they're perfect for this kind of thing. Secondly, we've all experienced that situation where we're putting down mulch or compost or something like that, and we open the bag at the top or in the middle or whatever, and lo and behold, we find that we try to get it out and then it takes us twice as long because a lot of it gets caught into the corners. The bag starts getting all tortured and crumpled, and it's hard to just get it all out. Well, here is a tip that's kind of a no-brainer, but of course it took me a long time to fully integrate it into my gardening practices. And that is, a lot of times when we're putting a bag of either mulch or compost or whatever and we're spreading it, then we'll open it at the top or we'll just puncture it in the middle, and then we try to get it out of the sack, and then lots of the residue gets caught up in the corners and it just becomes a little bit irritating. And I'm all about reducing irritation in the garden, even though I'm not always smart about things. But I have noticed that this technique works brilliantly, and that is, you just do a big X. You cut an X to all of the corners, and then it will not hang in place. I can just kind of dump that out, and voila, it very easily comes out. And then all I have to do is just spread it. Now, originally I was just going to use half of a bag, but I decided that I am really going to show this area some love. This is aged compost, and so no harm, no foul. Okay, a little bit more about the okra that I'm planting, if I can see where I put my seeds. And that is okra loves the heat, which is one of the reasons I've selected it for my little experiment. It absolutely loves the heat. I think it is a beautiful plant. It gets pretty large, and it will also help kind of shade out the boxwood, and it will be a nice parallel in terms of mass and size ultimately to the eggplant over there. Granted, it'll take a while for it to catch up, but nevertheless, in my mind, that's the scale that I envision.
And it's so easy Stuart can grow it, because I grew okra.
Really? What kind did you grow?
I had the purple and regular spine-free, whatever.
Yeah.
Supposed to be spine-free, but still was, you know.
Yeah, there's, the only okra that I've grown before is, I believe it was called cowhorn okra, Stuart, and it was some seed that I got at Monticello.
Oh, wow.
And it was absolutely wonderful. And here's the thing about okra. You want to harvest it when it's really small, because that's when I like it the best. Better than pickled, better than fried, better than whatever. I like it when it's really, really tiny and very fresh before it gets too tough, too prickly, and just too unpleasant to the palate. Would you agree, Stuart?
Do you like it raw? Is that what you're
I
saying?
love it raw.
I like it raw.
I like it, yeah, and I love the crunch. It's got a very satisfying crunch. And so I can chop it up and use it like scallions or onions or scallions or celery or carrots or whatever in salads, and I really like it that way. Or I also like using it on a crudité platter, Stuart, with dips and things. The other reason that I plant it is because I love the way it looks when it dries. Now, I'm not sure if this variety is going to dry in the same way that the cowhorn okra did, but it will. Some of it I let get really large. I mean, I will let it get up to 4 to 5 inches because I use it for decorative purposes, because it's absolutely beautiful when it dries. It kind of dries like a gourd will dry, and the insides will kind of desiccate, and then it becomes a shell, and it has this gorgeous bone color. And what brought my attention to just how aesthetically beautiful it was I was in Santa Fe at a florist, and they had stems of okra and large okra pods that were selling for quite a penny, quite a pretty penny. And I realized that I had some dried okra of my own, and now I use it at Christmas, at Thanksgiving. I use it in a lot of different ways in my holiday decor. So there is another reason why I am going to garden grow some red burgundy okra. And Stuart, I promise to share some of this with you if it works out.
I'll be picking it off when I'm over here.
No, you have to let me get first dibs. You, the squirrels, the birds, I'm in competition with all sorts of things for harvest. So these are going to be spaced 3 to 4 inches apart to about ½ inch. Days to sprout, 7 to 15 days. Mature spacing, 12 inches. Days to harvest, 60. So I typically always will plant it, maybe especially this time of year. I'm going to plant it more closely and more densely than I would otherwise, simply because I think the germination will be affected. There's always the cutworm factor, and I just think it's probably a pretty good strategy. So that's going to be my strategy for planting this okra red burgundy. So again, it will be planted way more intensely than the original recommendation, but that's okay because I have my reasons. Now, Stuart, that didn't take too long, did it?
Not too long.
So, the beautiful thing about having kind of a free-form town garden like mine is I can overseed, and then later I can come back and thin or transplant the seedlings where I want them. Hopefully, Stuart, do you think people will be able to hear us?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Over?
Yeah, you're great.
Okay, as always, there's lots going on. Mine is very much a town garden. If any of you are new to watching this channel, first of all, I hope you enjoy it and I hope you'll subscribe. But secondly, just so you'll know, I do not live on a big estate or out in the country. I live in town, in a historic neighborhood near downtown Oklahoma City. And the houses were all built in the 30s, and they're relatively close together. And because of that, there's always ambient noise from blowers and power equipment and things of that nature as people do work during the summer. So I'm watering this in really, really well. And even though I have drip irrigation, and here is a tip. Probably what I'll do is I'll wait and see approximately where the seeds germinate. And I try to at least loosely align them with the drip irrigation hose. But I can always move around the drip irrigation and secure it in place in accordance with the germination of the seedlings. So while I have drip irrigation, definitely for the first few days, I am going to come out here and give them daily watering to enhance seed germination. And as you can see, I put down some of these garden cloches. And yes, for those of you who asked, I will be having garden cloches, Lord willing, in my QVC line next year that are a little bit different than these. These came from Gardener Supply that just have a few tweaks to them, things that I found were features that were a little bit more enhanced for both indoors and out. Gave them a little bit more flexibility. But this will prevent, I don't know if they'll do anything to prevent cutworms, but definitely it will do something to prevent squirrels digging and other kind of pesky critters from disturbing the soil and where the seeds germinate. There's a little of area that's not covered in here, but that's okay. And I think even though it's very much in process, I think it still looks presentable. It looks nice. I can finish clearing off the brick path in between. And it also gives me room to do just some very, very light pruning on the boxwood hedge, which was defaced a little bit when one of the posts came down on it, but that's okay. It's a rejuvenation year for this boxwood anyway. It doesn't look perfect. I'll go for perfect next year. Today, I'm all about good presentability. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with me. See you next time. Well, if you have held on this long, here is my outfit of the day and a repeat of maybe the video that you watched yesterday. My hat is from Dillard's. It has SPF in it. My sunglasses are Ray-Ban. My hoops are just some generic hoops I got somewhere. My top is Ann Taylor Loft. I do have some new gardening gloves on order. These are one of my old pair, and I decided to treat myself. So I got rid of all of my old Holy Garden gloves and I ordered a whole bunch of new ones. They're Cool Joy. I bought them online and we will definitely put a link. It was a little late summer treat I gave to myself. My breeches are camo breeches that I got at Goodwill. I think they were all of maybe $4 or $5. And my garden boots are Mary boots that I love not only for working out in the garden, but I think they're just cute as can be. So there you go. There's my outfit of the day.